Welcome to the Becoming Years. Allow me to welcome the woman behind the voice and journey. Your host, Alina Wilson, is a mother, entrepreneur, aesthetics, wellness clinic owner, and author of Thoughtful Aging, restoring honor to the aging process with intention and grace. Her becoming years have been shaped by courage, reinvention, and wisdom. And the truth is, she is still becoming. Because the becoming years are not about who you were, they're about who you choose to become. No matter your age or your story, we are all still becoming. Alina, the mic is yours.
Welcome to the Becoming Years. Today's conversation is about something that almost every adult experiences, but hardly anyone talks about. Ending friendships with grace, and also what to do if you're hurt or betrayed by someone that you trusted. Most of us can name a difficult romantic relationship breakup, but far fewer of us talk about the friendships that fall apart, even though they can be just as painful. And we'll go into the why in just a minute. There was a study done recently that showed that up to 70% of close friendships dissolve over time, especially across major transitions and phases of personal growth. But yet there's no cultural script for ending friendship gracefully. There's no breakup text, templates, no closure traditions like we have with relationships ending. And honestly, no support groups the way that there are for romantic breakups. Well, today we're going to change that. So let's start with the biology of it. When a close friendship ends, especially one that's been meaningful, your brain reacts in ways that might surprise you. We know from neuroscience that losing a close friend can activate the amygdala in your brain, so the part of your brain that signals a threat, and it can trigger stress hormones like cortisol and norepinephrine. Those are the same systems that respond to real danger. And that's why friendship loss can trigger things like anxiety and mood swings or sleep disturbances. You find yourself waking up in the middle of the night wondering what happened and what you did wrong. There's also the very real feeling of rejection and the social threat of being left out, not being invited to the parties or the shopping trips or the holidays. And then there's this ambiguous grief. You're mourning someone who's still alive, but no longer present in your life. Well, this isn't an isolated experience. Mental Health Network did a study recently that tells us that 78% of adults have experienced at least one significant friendship breakup. And nearly 2/3 of those 78% of adults reported that it affected their mental health as much or more than a romantic separation. That's wild. We're biologically wired for connection, and when a close connection ends, our nervous system feels that loss. So that's not dramatic, that's human. What do we do about it then? So when you recognize that your friendship has run its course, also recognize that not all friendships end in betrayal. Many just quietly fade. We grow in different ways, in different directions. And that can hurt too. It still leaves you wondering what happened. I had an experience like this with a good friend. We had spent a lot of time together. It was when I was married and she was married, and we would vacation together, go places together, lunches, dinners, social events. And then when my marriage ended, it created somewhat of a separation between us, as is to be expected when a marriage or romantic relationship ends. Kind of figure out who's going where in what social circles. But with this particular friend, we were very close and we continued to meet for lunch and talk and do things together. However, because of my major life transition, I set out on a path of growth. I really wanted to figure out what happened, and I began being drawn toward friendships that supported that path of growth. And what I realized eventually was that she was not one of those people to me in my life. In fact, we grew apart, and she called me one day and she said, I want to meet you for lunch. I have some things I really want to share with you. And so I said, okay. We met for lunch, and she starts by telling me that she's very concerned about me, that I've changed in ways that she doesn't understand, and that she just cares about me and just wants me to know that I'm different, that I've changed and I'm just not the same. And she didn't know if it was my divorce or if there were other things going on in my life, but she was there just to let me know that this had become very uncomfortable for her. I appreciated her willingness to reach out and connect with me. What I shared with her was that you're not wrong. I have changed. I have grown. I am different. And I feel a tension here because you're not changing. You're not growing. You are the same as you were a year ago. And because I'm on a path of growth and recovery and discovery, we have less and less in common and less to talk about. So we sat at that lunch and we didn't really come to a resolution there other than I love you, you love me. Let's find a way to get back to an unforced rhythm of friendship and see what happens without expectation. Well, long story short, we stayed in touch, but we did continue to grow apart. My friend Julia explained it this way, and I just love this. Thank you, Julia. She said, friendships are like planets that orbit. Sometimes you orbit closer together, and other times you're orbiting farther apart. It doesn't mean that you have to break off connection or burn bridges, which is never a good idea. You just allow time and space to occur, and you may come back together at other transition times in life, or you may continue to just stay in the same orbit and just orbit farther apart. You can love each other from a distance. Sometimes that's the safest, and that's the best thing to do. But when you are considering ending a friendship and you feel like a friendship has run its course, there are signs that you can look for. And I saw some of these in that friendship that I just explained to you. First thing to look for are repeated boundary violations. So if you've said what you need more than once and it's still ignored, that's not miscommunication. That's disregard. Another thing is whether or not there's a consistent emotional drain. Your friends should energize you and support you. And if your time with them leaves you feeling depleted, then there's definitely something off there. Another is whether or not they dismiss you. Little small slights, whether it's comments that they say in a group of friends or not giving you attention that you might need in the friendship, those little things add up over time. And those can begin to affect your self-worth and leave you wondering, are you good enough? Did you do something wrong? That's being disrespectful and dismissive in a friendship. And that's also something to pay attention to. Another thing would be if there's a pattern of betrayal or dishonesty. It might include gossiping about you or breaking confidence or undermining your reputation with others. It could be something that happens just behind the scenes or in a very overt way, but definitely pay attention to that. That's not okay. These are patterns that are common in friendships that are no longer nurturing your well-being. So, if you're in a situation where you're feeling like you're growing apart and you do need to end a friendship, focus on ending it with grace. Now, here's the million-dollar question. How do you end a friendship gracefully? The first and most important thing is to exit this friendship with clarity, compassion, and dignity. That's so important. Recognize that you're not responsible for their reaction, only your integrity. When my friend called me and asked me if I would have lunch with her because she wanted to talk, I'll admit that I was a little bit nervous. I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I didn't know if it was going to end in an explosion, if it was going to end in reconciliation. I just knew that I was going to show up and be fully present. And I did a heart posture check. What I mean by that is you Reflect on what you're going to say before you say it. That requires a pause. You notice your emotions. Are you feeling heartbroken? Are you frustrated? Do you feel any sense of relief? All of those things are valid. You just want to be sure that you take enough time to make sure that you're calm before you go into a conversation where you need to communicate how you're feeling. Also, communicate directly but kindly. Brene Brown talks a lot in her work about being clear and concise. This applies to relationships as well as business. What you say matters. You can be direct but kind. It doesn't have to be a long speech. It could be something like, hey, I care about you, but I need to step back for my own well-being. Maybe not forever, but at least for now. Can you give me that space? It could also be something as clear as, hey, I've been reflecting on what I need, and I don't feel this friendship is healthy for me anymore. I want you to know I care about you, but I wish you all the best moving forward. I need to step away. Approaching it this way keeps the focus away from character attacks and on your experience rather than anything that they may or may have done wrong. Another thing is to set clear boundaries. Once you've made the decision that a friendship needs to end, it's time to follow through with what you say. Ending it with grace doesn't mean leaving room for questions. It means saying what you mean and meaning what you say. It could be something as direct as, I need space, or, hey, I just won't be able to respond to texts for a time, or I'm choosing not to continue this friendship. Clarity is kindness, and it's kind to both you and to them. Be sure that when you decide to end a friendship, that you really hold clear to those boundaries. Remember, boundaries are not walls. They're doorways to a better version of you. Now, there is no mutual closure required. And what I mean by that is if you go to a friend and you say, hey, I need some space, I'm not going to be texting for a while, I'm feeling out of balance here and I want to get back to center, you don't need their permission to do that. Sometimes they won't want to talk to you, or they might react with being really angry, or as in the case of my friend, they might deny anything or any part of this disruption that's happened. That is their emotional process, not your failure. Ending with grace doesn't mean that you get their approval. It means that you're reclaiming some self-respect and creating a healthier path for yourself going forward. Now, we've talked a lot about friendships that just end by growing apart. What do you do if you have a friendship that ends in betrayal? This conversation is actually coming up today because I had a talk with someone in their 20s who had experienced deep betrayal in a friendship. This person was her bestie. They did everything together. And then she found out after several months of strange behavior that this person had done something horrible and really betrayed her trust. We talked about how to process that, how to navigate that, and why it was so much more difficult when this happens. Betrayal cuts deeper because it violates attachment, and her belief that her friend was someone safe and reliable was shattered, and that pain hits differently. If you're in that situation and you've experienced that, here are some things that you can do to navigate it. First of all, ground yourself in reality. If you're feeling pain about it, don't minimize it. It's going to hurt. Betrayal leaves an emotional and cognitive imprint, and it's okay to have that, to feel that. And then decide for yourself, do you want to heal it or do you want to release it? Is this person genuinely sorry for what they've done? Have they taken accountability for their actions? Can you see a meaningful change in their behavior, in the consistency of how they show up, in the honesty, in the way that they relate to you? Is it from a place of compassion or from a place of denial? If you feel like there's been genuine remorse and they've taken accountability, then create a pathway forward with them. Start small. Have consistency in the small things, whether it's texting regularly or getting together regularly or getting a sense of genuine openness and transparency that they want to move forward with you. And if the answer is no, moving on is probably the healthiest choice. If you make that decision to move on, don't retaliate. You may have the instinct to want to do something to harm them because they've harmed you, but retaliation will only deepen that wound that you have felt. Healing starts with your nervous system calming down, and that means that you regulate. There's a brilliant educator out there right now. Her name is Sarah Baldwin. She is doing amazing work on nervous system regulation, and I would strongly recommend that you go and find her. She's on Instagram as Sarah B Coaching. She has a website. I'll list it in the show notes. I can't think of it right now. But if you are at all interested in diving deep into nervous system regulation, she's your best resource right now, in my opinion. If you want to try some things on your own, there are things that you can do. Journal your emotions if you're a writer. You can talk to a therapist or find one or maybe two really good friends who are outside of the circumstance that you can talk to and share it with them. Don't share it with everybody. That's not healthy. But share it with one or two people who you know can give you good advice, who deeply care about you and want the best for you. Also, avoid confronting the people who have created the betrayal when your emotions are high. You really want to get yourself back to a regulated space where you're communicating calmly and clearly, like we talked about before, and not when your amygdala is firing and you're thinking to yourself that you just want to burn it all down. Not a good time to have those conversations. Just keep in mind that sometimes the healthiest path isn't to repair the friendship, it's to release the friendship. And if you do find yourself in a situation where you need to release it and let it go, recognize that healing from friendship, it doesn't mean forgetting about them. It means integrating the lessons that you've learned through that experience into your life story without it becoming a barrier to future connection. A lot of times when we experience hurt or betrayal or loss, we want to instinctively build a wall or build a barrier so that we don't get hurt again. But that will only leave you feeling isolated and alone. There's no societal ritual for ending friendship, so sometimes you got to make your own. It could be writing a letter that you don't send. You might want to take a walk and just reflect on what that friendship taught you so that you can get back to a space of gratitude. Or if it's something that has shaken your self-worth and your self-confidence, put up little notes around your house that reaffirm your worth. This is what we call reclaiming your narrative. Instead of saying things to yourself like I was too sensitive or I failed or I blew it and I'll never be able to have a deep friendship again, remind yourself of the truth. And the truth is that you're hurting deeply because you loved deeply, because you have the ability to be open and honest and transparent in a friendship, because you were willing to take a risk and you allowed yourself a deep connection, even if it was only for a short period of time. These are all things that you can manifest for yourself in new ways with people who actually can meet you where you are in your life transition right now. That's not a failure. That's actually a great success. So how do you rebuild your community going forward? Here's the great thing about this, and I really like this. If you have to let a friendship go or end a friendship, think of it this way. You're actually just creating space in your community for another friend to step in who can grow with you during the transition you're at in life right now. The woman that you were or are at 25 may not share the same core values as the woman you will be or are at 45. So it's important to understand that this growth is a necessary part of maintaining deep connections in life. And as you grow, your inner circle will shift. Now, before you go out and make 100 new friends tomorrow, let's touch on capacity, because our brains do have a cognitive and an emotional limit for what we can maintain in our day-to-day lives. We can't maintain deep intimacy with everyone. And when I was writing my book, Thoughtful Aging, the chapters that I wrote on our need to belong and on relationships led me to a study done by anthropologist Robin Dunbar. I really like this. He proposed that humans can maintain only about 150 stable social relationships. Within that 150 are concentric circles, so think of overlapping circles. We have 5 intimate connections. These are your ride or die besties, the people that you call in the middle of the night if you need help, or the ones that are growing with you through transitions of life and love and family and spirituality. Beyond that 5 are 15 close friends. These are the friends that you call if you need help moving, or you might invite them to a holiday dinner, or you see them out in social settings. You end up at the same events. Beyond that 15 are 50 meaningful contacts. So think of the moms in your soccer group that you ride share with, or the ones that you meet at the school plays when you're all wrangling kids in the back of the behind the stage. You know, these are the women that you're sharing life with on certain levels, but they're not coming to your holidays and you're not sharing your deepest, intimate, darkest secrets with them. So you've got those 50 meaningful contacts. Maybe you pick up groceries for them every once in a while and drop them off when they're sick. And then beyond that, you've got 150 broader social relationships. It's more like the friend of the friend who you know because you go to the same fundraisers, or you've heard of them in different social settings or within different groups, or your best friend's sister's lash technician or hairstylist. Those are your 150 broader social connections. And so when we think about creating new friendships in life, we're really thinking about them in those different social settings. Because again, when you reorganize your capacity for friendships, and as your inner circle shifts, like we've talked about, you increase your capacity for inclusion in your life. This is really important. I'm going to share a story with you now about a woman in her 80s who I was speaking with, and she was sharing with me that when she was in her 60s, she formed really close relationships with 3 other people. They had breakfast together once a week. They worked on nonprofit projects together. They supported each other through these really deep life transitions. So this would be what we would call her 5 intimate connection group. With her, there were 3 of them, and they did life together for 20 years. They never expanded their group. She never went outside of that group to form any other social connections. They didn't invite anybody new into that group. And there she was in her 80s, and she was alone because she hadn't formed any other social connections. One friend had passed away from a heart attack. One had passed away from a stroke. I don't remember what happened to the third one, but my heart just broke for her because she didn't know how to create friendships at that point in her life. One of the things that we talked about was the overwhelming feeling of the effort and energy that it takes to create a new friendship. And so in our conversation, we discussed not thinking about that as overwhelming, but thinking about it as an opportunity, and really just starting small with creating moments of joy as you're out in the world. And what I mean by that is when you see someone in your social circles or that appears in your life over and over again, take time and make the effort to go to that person. And starting small means giving them a compliment like, hey, I love your shirt. I love your shoes. This is a great outfit. Or it could be, you have a really great smile. Or it could be starting a conversation like about their kids or their family and just kind of getting a gauge in the sense of whether or not they have the capacity in their life to form a friendship with you. And maybe they do and it works, and maybe they don't. And that's okay too, because you've put in the effort to try. And when you create those moments of joy, you both walk away with something, whether it becomes a long-lasting friendship or not. You can build new richness and connection, and sometimes it will be in the places that you least expect it. So, as we close down this episode, I just want to share one final thought with you. Ending a friendship with grace, it doesn't mean that it's not going to hurt. It means that you're choosing gentleness over bitterness, and clarity over confusion, and self-compassion over blame, because you are worthy of connections that honor you and of peaceful endings when they no longer do. Thank you for listening to The Becoming Years. I'm your host, Alina Wilson. And until next time, may your endings be graceful and your beginnings be full of possibility. If you'd like to send me a question or send some feedback or share your thoughts, you can actually do that directly to my inbox by going to speakpipe.com/The Becoming Years podcast. You can send me a voice note. If there's something that you'd like me to talk about, let me know. If it's something that I know about, I'm going to hop on and share everything I know. And if it's something I don't know about, I will go find the expert who does and we'll talk about it with them. Thank you again for listening. I'll be thinking of you.